Have you ever had that strange feeling that you're living someone else's life? You wake up, go through your daily routine, check all the boxes that you're supposed to check. Good job, nice apartment, stable relationship, healthy habits. But something feels off. It's like you're wearing a costume that almost fits, but not quite. You look fine from the outside, but inside, there's this quiet voice whispering, "This isn't really me." Here's what I'm about to tell you. That whisper isn't your enemy. It's your soul trying to get your attention. Most people spend their entire lives ignoring that voice. They turn up the volume on everything else. Work, Netflix, social media, other people's problems. Anything to drown out that persistent whisper that says, "There's more. You're meant for more." But you're reading this right now, which tells me something important. You're one of the brave ones. You're willing to stop and listen. And what I'm about to share are 7 signs that you're not just listening anymore. You're actually becoming the person that voice has been calling you to be all along. These aren't the typical self-help signs you've heard 1,000 times. These are the real, raw, often uncomfortable signs that nobody talks about. Let's dive in. Sign number 1. You're becoming comfortable with disappointing people. This is usually the first sign, and it's the one that scares people most. You start saying no to things you would have automatically said yes to before. Your mother calls asking you to come to a family dinner that you know will drain you for 3 days, and for the first time you say, "I can't make it this time." Your friend asks you to help them move for the 3rd time this year, and you pause and realize, "Actually, I don't want to do that." And here's the kicker. You don't even feel that guilty about it anymore. For most of your life, you've been trained to believe that being a good person means making everyone else happy, even at the cost of your own well-being. You've twisted yourself into shapes that fit other people's expectations. You become an expert at reading rooms and making sure everyone else is comfortable while you slowly disappear. But something shifts when you start becoming the person your soul was waiting for. You begin to understand that you can't be genuinely present for anyone if you're not present for yourself first. You realize that saying yes when you mean no isn't kindness. It's a betrayal. You're not becoming selfish. You're becoming self-full. There's a massive difference. Selfish people take, without regard for others. Self-full people understand they have to fill their own cup first. Some people won't like this new version of you. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. And here's the truth. The people who get angry at you for having boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any. Sign number 2. You stop explaining yourself so much. This one is subtle but powerful. You notice you're no longer writing paragraph-long text messages explaining why you can't do something. You're not over-justifying your decisions to people who didn't ask for justification. You're not preemptively defending your choices before anyone has questioned them. When someone asks why you're doing something, you might simply say, "Because I want to," or "Because it feels right for me," and then you stop talking. This is happening because you're finally starting to trust yourself. For years, you've been running every decision through an external committee. What will they think? How will this look? Can I justify this? You've been treating your own desires like they need approval from someone else before they're valid. But your soul doesn't work that way. Your soul doesn't need permission. It knows what it knows, and it's been waiting for you to trust that knowing without needing external validation. Sign number 3, you're losing interest in drama, even your own. You notice you're not as interested in gossip anymore. Those long conversations dissecting someone else's relationship or complaining about work feel exhausting rather than entertaining. But here's the bigger shift. You're also losing interest in your own drama. That story you've been telling yourself for years about how you're the victim, or how you're broken, or how nothing ever works out for you. It's starting to feel old, not because those experiences weren't real, but because you're realizing you're not just those experiences. You're also what you do with them. This is what it looks like when you stop identifying with your suffering. Your pain might have been the most interesting thing about you. At least to you, it gave you something to talk about, something to bond over. And there's nothing wrong with that. Pain is real. Those experiences shaped you. But you're starting to realize that you're not defined by your pain. Healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about no longer needing your past to be the central plot of your present story. You start choosing peace over chaos. You start choosing depth over intensity. Not every problem needs to be analyzed to death. Not every feeling needs to be dissected. Sign number 4. You're becoming more honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Someone asks, "How are you?" And instead of automatically saying fine, you pause and check in with yourself. Maybe you say, "Actually, I'm having a rough day." Not complaining, just being real. Or you're at dinner, and everyone is raving about a restaurant, and you realize you don't think it's that great. The old you would have nodded along. The new you says, "I'm glad you're enjoying it, but honestly, it's not really doing it for me." Every small act of honesty is a brick in the foundation of your authentic self. For so long, you've been shape-shifting to match whatever environment you're in. You've been a chameleon, changing your opinions, your energy, even your personality depending on who you're with. Not because you're fake, but because somewhere along the line, you learned that being yourself wasn't safe. This kind of honesty requires tremendous courage because it means risking rejection. When you're being a chameleon and people reject you, they're not really rejecting you. They're rejecting the version you showed them. But when you're genuinely yourself, there's nowhere to hide. But here's what you're discovering. The freedom of being yourself is worth the risk of not being everyone's cup of tea. You'd rather have 5 people who love the real you than 50 people who love a performance. The loneliest feeling in the world isn't being alone. It's being surrounded by people who don't actually know you because you've never let them see you. Sign number 5. You're letting go of who you thought you should be. This sign hits differently because it often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You might have spent years building an identity around being the smart one, the helper, the responsible one, or the creative one. You've invested so much energy into this version of yourself that it became your brand, your safety net, your way of knowing who you are in the world. But now something strange is happening. That identity is starting to feel like a cage. You catch yourself doing things not because you want to, but because that's what someone like me does. You're maintaining an image that doesn't quite fit anymore, and the effort of keeping it up is exhausting. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The person you thought you should be is often just a collection of other people's expectations dressed up as your own aspirations. Maybe you thought you should be the person who always has it together, so you spent years pretending you don't struggle. Maybe you thought you should be ambitious and climbing the corporate ladder, but secretly you dream about something completely different. Maybe you thought you should be in a relationship by now, living in a certain neighborhood, making a certain amount of money, and you've been measuring yourself against these invisible benchmarks that you never actually chose for yourself. When you're becoming the person your soul was waiting for, you start to release these shoulds like old clothes that don't fit anymore. And yes, it's disorienting. You might go through a phase where you don't quite know who you are anymore. That's not a crisis. That's a breakthrough. You're making space for something more genuine to emerge. Sign number 6. You're choosing solitude over bad company. This might be the most misunderstood sign of all. You find yourself spending more time alone, and here's the surprising part. You're not lonely. You're actually enjoying your own company in a way you never have before. You're turning down invitations that would have felt obligatory before. You're letting friendships fade that were based more on habit than genuine connection. People might worry about you. Are you okay? You've been so distant lately. And the truth is, you're more okay than you've been in years. You're just finally learning the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is feeling empty when you're by yourself. Solitude is feeling full. For years, you might have filled your calendar with social obligations because being busy felt better than being alone with your thoughts. You surrounded yourself with people, not necessarily because these relationships were nourishing, but because silence felt uncomfortable. You were running from yourself. But when you're becoming the person your soul was waiting for, you start to crave that silence. You need it because it's in that quiet space that you can finally hear yourself think. It's where you can process what you're feeling without someone else's opinions drowning out your own. It's where you remember who you are when no one is watching. This doesn't mean you become a hermit or stop valuing relationships. It means you become more selective. You start understanding that quality matters infinitely more than quantity. You'd rather have one conversation that touches your soul than 10 that don't scratch the surface. And here's what happens. When you stop settling for surface-level connections, you create space for deeper ones. The right people show up when you're no longer cluttering your life with the wrong ones. Sign number 7. You're finally taking action on things you've been thinking about for years. This is a sign that tells you everything is coming together. There's that thing you've been talking about doing forever. Maybe it's starting a business, writing a book, learning an instrument, moving to a new city, ending a relationship that's been dead for years, or finally booking that trip. You've had 1,000 conversations about it. You've made mental plans. You've told yourself someday. But now something has shifted. You're not just talking anymore. You're doing. You sign up for the class. You book the flight. You have the difficult conversation. You make the investment. You take the first step, even though you don't have all the answers figured out yet. This happens because you've stopped waiting for permission from other people, from circumstances, from some future version of yourself who has it all together. You realize that the perfect time doesn't exist. You realize that waiting for certainty is just another way of staying stuck. The person your soul was waiting for isn't someone who has it all figured out. It's someone who's willing to figure out as they go. You're done with the endless preparation phase. You're done researching and planning and getting ready. You understand now that you learn by doing, not by thinking about doing. You understand that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite the fear. And here's what makes this different from past attempts. You're not doing it to prove anything to anyone. You're not doing it because you think it will make you worthy or lovable or enough. You're doing it simply because your soul is calling you toward it, and you finally learn to trust that call, bringing it all together. If you're experiencing even a few of these signs, I want you to understand something crucial. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming who you've always been underneath all the conditioning, the people-pleasing, the fear, and the performance. Your soul has been waiting patiently for you to clear away everything that isn't you, so the real you can finally breathe. And that's exactly what's happening now. This process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often deeply uncomfortable. You might lose some people. You might confuse others. You might go through a period where you feel like you don't quite know who you are anymore. But on the other side of that discomfort is something precious, freedom, the freedom to be yourself without apology, the freedom to live according to your own values instead of borrowed ones, the freedom to disappoint people without betraying yourself, the freedom to finally feel at home in your own skin. So keep going. Keep choosing yourself. Keep listening to that quiet voice that's been whispering to you all along. Keep becoming. The person your soul was waiting for is already here. They're reading these words right now. They're you, just finally willing to show up as yourself. And that's everything.